Okay, so let's try a little experiment right now. I want you to imagine a specific scenario.
A challenge,
Yeah,
really.
exactly, a challenge. Can you describe your entire day from the very minute you open your eyes in the morning to the second you close them at night entirely in English?
And here's the catch with that. No stopping, no translating in your head, and definitely no freezing up.
Right, which sounds easy.
It sounds incredibly simple, doesn't it? Just talk about your day. But for a lot of language learners, this is actually a massive hurdle.
It really is.
Because you might have memorized all these long lists of vocabulary. You know the word for apple or car or desk, but connecting those isolated words into a flowing narrative about your actual life, that is a completely different skill.
It is the difference between knowing the ingredients in the pantry and actually knowing how to cook a meal.
That is a great way to put it.
So today we are going on a deep dive into learning how to talk about your day. We want to help you move from those simple words to actually storytelling about your daily routine. And we are drawing from a really great source today.
Yes, a video from the Mr. English channel.
Right.
It features a dialogue between two characters, Emily and Paul, and they basically break down a specific story about a woman's daily routine.
And what is so fascinating here is that the story itself is very simple, but the language they use to discuss it is just packed with really useful nuances.
Exactly, like why we use specific prepositions or the subtle differences between verbs.
Right. And since our goal today is to help you, the listener, build confidence, we're going to keep our pace moderate. We want to use accessible vocabulary, but we are really going to dig into the details.
The nuance is where the magic happens.
It really is. So let's dive right into the morning. The routine in our source material starts bright and early at 6:30 a.m.
Which, let's be honest, is quite early for a lot of people.
Too early for me.
Me too!
Yeah.
But immediately, right at the start of the day, we hit our first major learning point from the source. They make a very specific distinction between two phrasal verbs that learners mix up all the time.
Oh, I know what this is.
Wake up and get up.
Yes, this is a classic. I feel like everyone confuses these at some point. I hear people say, I wake up at 7:00 when they actually mean they got out of bed at 7:00.
Right.
So help us out here. What is the technical difference?
So it is all about the physical action versus the mental state. Wake up is the mental shift.
Okay.
It is that precise moment, your eyes open, you are no longer sleeping, consciousness has returned.
But I'm still in bed.
Exactly. Your head is likely still on the pillow. You have woken up, but you haven't gotten up yet.
Okay, so I hear the alarm, my eyes open, I am awake, but I am still warm and cozy under the blankets.
Precisely. To get up means to physically remove your body from the bed.
Right.
Your feet actually touch the floor. You are standing up. You have left the bed.
This reminds me of the anecdote Paul shares in the source material. It was just so relatable.
Oh, about his morning routine?
Yeah. He says he wakes up at 7:00, but he doesn't get up until 7:15.
Right. Right. And I think we can all relate to his reasoning there. He mentions the bed is warm and the air outside is cold.
It is the worst feeling.
It is. That 15-minute gap is the woken up but not gotten up phase. And as he notes, it is a dangerous time.
That is the most dangerous 15 minutes of the entire day. It is so easy to just fall back asleep.
Definitely. And speaking of that heavy feeling, the source introduces a perfect adjective for that specific state.
Sleepy.
Sleepy. It is a deceptively simple word, but it describes a very specific feeling.
Because it is not just tired.
No, not at all. Tired is how you feel after you run a marathon or if you work hard all day. Sleepy is that groggy state, halfway between dreaming and being awake.
Yep.
It is the state where, as the source puts it, you need coffee immediately.
I basically live in that state until at least 8 a.m.
Same here.
But the woman in the story does something really interesting here. Despite feeling sleepy, she focuses on her mindset. She tries to start with a positive attitude.
Thinking good thoughts. And this connects to a bigger picture, really. Not just language learning, but life.
How so?
The source emphasizes that thinking good thoughts right away can dictate how the rest of the day goes.
Oh, I see.
It is not just about the grammar of the routine, it is about the emotion behind it. If you wake up and say, oh, I have to get up, it feels heavy.
Right, it feels like a chore.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But if you say, I am ready to start the day, it completely changes the feeling.
That makes a lot of sense. So she wakes up, she eventually gets up, she has a positive attitude. Now we get to the first actual physical task of the day, making the bed.
And this is where we saw a really funny conflict in the source material between Emily and Paul.
I loved this part.
It really highlights two totally different types of personalities.
Yeah. So the woman in this story, makes her bed because she says it makes the room look organized. But Paul has a confession.
Paul admits he doesn't always do it.
Yeah.
He kind of represents the messy side of us. He says he is sometimes in a hurry.
Right.
And Emily, who seems very cold together, describes the alternative perfectly. She says without making the bed, the room looks like a hurricane visited it.
A hurricane. That is such a vivid image for a messy room.
It really is.
Just blankets everywhere, pillows thrown on the floor.
And it highlights why we use language like this. Instead of just saying, my room was messy, saying it looked like a hurricane visited, it paints a real picture.
It is much more descriptive.
Yes. One word implies control and calm, organized. The other implies total chaos, hurricane. Making the bed is a small action, but in the context of describing your routine, it signals to the listener that you are a person who values order.
So we have survived the morning hurricane. Now we move to the bathroom routine. Getting ready.
Hygiene.
Right, hygiene. The source focuses on brushing teeth, which is standard. But I want to look at the adjectives they use. They didn't just say clean.
No, they use the phrase fresh and clean.
Fresh. That is such a great word for learners to adopt.
It is very natural. The source compares the feeling of fresh to a new apple or a cool breeze.
That is a great comparison.
When you are learning English, moving beyond simple words like good or nice and using words like fresh, it adds so much sensory detail to your speech.
It makes your listener actually feel what you are talking about. You can almost imagine that cool, minty sensation.
Exactly.
And then we get to the most important meal of the day, breakfast.
The source describes what they call a classic breakfast, toast and eggs.
Simple, effective.
Very simple. But the real focus of the conversation between Emily and Paul wasn't actually the food, it was the beverage.
Coffee, the universal language.
It really is. They shared this hilarious story about Paul visiting the studio when they had run out of coffee.
Oh, right. Emily said he sat there like a statue.
A statue, again, great imagery, motionless, lifeless, not moving a single muscle.
Because he was so sleepy.
Right. But when she finally found the coffee, she described the change in him as magic. Suddenly he wouldn't stop talking.
It is so relatable, but it's also just great vocabulary for learners.
It is.
Describing someone as a statue or a transformation as magic is so much more engaging than just saying he was quiet and then he was loud.
Exactly. It adds personality. It turns a boring daily event into a funny story.
Yeah.
And that brings us to getting dressed. The key criteria mentioned in the source wasn't fashionable or expensive. It was comfortable.
Comfortable. Not tight clothes, not difficult clothes, just comfortable. But here is where the source gets really interesting and honestly pretty funny.
Even native speakers have bad mornings.
Yes. Emily told a story about getting dressed while she was still too sleepy.
The mismatched socks incident.
The socks. She wore one blue sock and one green sock. And she didn't even notice until she was all the way at the supermarket.
I love that they included this little detail because it reminds the learner that language and life really isn't about perfection.
No, not at all.
It is about communication. Describing your mistake, like wearing different colored socks, is actually a great way to bond with people.
It makes you approachable.
It is human. It creates a connection because we've all done something silly like that when we are sleepy.
Totally. So she is dressed, hopefully with matching socks this time, and she leaves the house at 8 a.m. Now we have to talk about the commute.
Transportation vocabulary is essential for talking about your day. The woman in the main story drives. She uses a car, but the source material uses this opportunity to contrast a few different modes of transport.
Yeah, Paul usually takes the bus. He mentions he likes looking out the window and listening to music. It sounds really peaceful.
And walking was mentioned too as being good for the legs. But there was a surprise reveal at the end of the source, wasn't there?
Yes. This was a great twist. Emily reveals she saw Paul yesterday, and he wasn't on the bus like he usually is. He was riding a bicycle.
And not just riding a bike. He was wearing a bright yellow safety helmet.
Safety first. Emily joked that she could see him from a block away.
This is a perfect example of adding detail to your stories. He didn't just wear a helmet. He wore a bright yellow safety helmet.
It paints a picture.
It does. If you were a learner describing your day, adding that color and that purpose, safety, it explains why he wears it. He wants cards to see him. It tells us about his values.
So whether by car, bus, or bright yellow bike, we arrive at work. Start time is 9:00 a.m. And here we get a nice vocabulary upgrade.
Yeah.
Instead of just saying work friends, the source emphasizes a specific word.
Colleagues.
Colleagues. It sounds so sophisticated.
It does sound professional, but it is actually very common in English. A colleague is simply someone you work with.
Right.
It implies a professional relationship. You might not hang out with them on the weekend, but you work together during the week. However, as Paul notes, you can still tell jokes with them to make the workday go faster.
And what does she do at work?
Yeah.
She answers emails. I feel like answering emails is the universal description of modern work.
It really is. It can be quite boring, but chatting with colleagues makes it better. But then we hit the midday mark, noon.
12 p.m., lunchtime. The source sets up a bit of a debate here. The healthy meal versus the pizza?
The eternal struggle. The woman in the story chooses the healthy meal. Salad, fruit, she is very disciplined.
Very.
Paul, however, argues for pizza. He calls it delicious, even if he admits it is not as healthy.
I'm definitely with Paul on the pizza.
Yeah.
Usually, anyway.
Yeah.
But let's move to after work. This is where the routine shifts from obligation to self-care. She exercises.
And notice the adjectives they use to describe the result of that exercise.
Right.
She doesn't just say she gets thin or fit. She says it makes her feel strong and relaxed.
That distinction is really important.
It is, and Paul adds a sort of psychological layer to it. He says exercise helps him forget the numbers in the emails.
I love that phrase.
It clears the mind.
It is a transition ritual. You wash away the workday so you can actually enjoy your evening.
Which brings us to her evening activity. She reads a book.
Now, in a world of streaming video and scrolling through your phone, this really stands out. The source makes a specific comparison here about why reading a physical book is better than looking at a phone screen.
It is all about the light. The screen light makes it hard to sleep. Reading a physical book helps you wind down.
It relaxes you.
It prepares the brain for rest. It is a physical signal to your body that the day is officially over.
And finally, bedtime. 10:30 p.m., she gets a solid 8 hours of sleep.
And the source connects this full circle right back to the morning. If you get good sleep, you can wake up with that positive attitude we talked about at the very start.
It is a cycle.
Exactly.
So what does this all mean for you listening to this? We've just walked through a full day. Let's recap the flow so we have it clear.
Right. Chronologically, it goes like this. First, wake up. That is when your eyes open. Then get up, feet on the floor.
Got it.
Next, make the bed. Try to avoid the hurricane look, followed by hygiene and breakfast.
Where coffee is magic.
Exactly. Then the commute. The safety helmet is optional but highly recommended. Work with your colleagues and your emails. Exercise to feel strong. And finally, sleep.
It seems so simple when you list it out like that. But the richness of the language comes from those little details.
Absolutely, and that is the challenge for you, the listener. Think about your own routine. Do you make your bed every morning, or are you more like Paul, leaving a hurricane behind?
Do you drive, or do you take the bus and listen to music?
Do you wear mismatched socks?
Right, and here's where it gets really profound for me. The source emphasized safety first with the yellow helmet, and organization with making the bed. It strikes me that learning English, or any language, isn't just about memorizing the word for helmet or bed.
No, not at all. It is about sharing those little slices of humanity. When you tell someone, I wore a bright yellow helmet so cars could see me, you aren't just conveying raw information.
You're sharing your values.
Yes. You are sharing that you care about safety. When you share that you didn't make your bed, you're telling the listener that you were in a rush, or maybe that you just aren't a morning person.
It is the difference between sounding like a textbook and sounding like a real person.
Precisely. The little details, the blue and green socks, the toast, the feeling of the cool breeze, those are the things that make a conversation connect two people. That builds empathy.
And that empathy is what keeps people listening to you. If you just recite a list of actions, people tune out. If you tell them about your mismatched socks, they smile.
They relate to you.
Exactly. So don't be afraid of the details. That is your homework. Practice describing your day, even if it is just to yourself in the mirror. Try to use words like fresh or sleepy or organized.
Even a little bit of practice every day is, as the source says, a big victory.
Well, I think I am going to go find some coffee right now so I don't turn into a statue.
And I will make sure my socks match before I leave the studio.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Practice talking about your day, and we will see you next time.
Bye, everyone. Keep practicing.